Hey everyone, my name is Carly Hess, and today we're going to talk about active versus passive voice.
'Cause I put it down like that, down.
Now you may have encountered active versus passive voice before in the form of your teacher writing on your paper in big red letters, pass. You probably figured out that they're not passing on your paper entirely, they're just seeing that you're using a lot of passive voice. So let's start with some definitions. Active voice is when the subject performs the action expressed in the verb, and passive voice is when the action is performed upon the subject. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I see that, I get a little nervous because I know what a subject and a verb is, but when it comes time to write my paper, I have a lot of trouble identifying when I'm using passive voice and when I'm not. Rebecca Johnson came up with this really helpful tip to identify if you're using passive voice. She said, just add by zombies to the end of the verb in your sentence. And if it makes sense, then you're probably using passive voice. The reason why adding by zombies works so well is because in passive voice, it's not clear who or what is performing the action in the sentence. So when you add by zombies, it starts to make sense. Politicians love passive voice because it hides the actor of the sentence. This really comes in handy when you're trying to cover up what mistakes were made and by whom. Let me show you what I mean.
There may be a situation here in which a serious mistake was made.
Clearly, mistakes were made.
There were mistakes made in Iraq for sure.
Writers use passive voice a lot, myself included, and it's usually unintentional. The reason why we use passive voice and we kind of slide into that when we're writing a paper is because you're trying to figure out what exactly you mean when you're writing. And in the process, you end up adding a bunch of unnecessary words. How I like to avoid using passive voice is once I finish my paper, I go back through it and ask myself if I sound enough like Beyonce, the businesswoman. Beyonce as a businesswoman is obviously fierce, and so she would say something like, I'm a grown woman, I can do whatever I want. But Beyonce would definitely not say, whatever is wanted will be done by me, a grown woman. Because that sounds pretty weak, and Beyonce is not weak, and you shouldn't be when you're writing your paper. That's why instructors always wanted you to use active voice, because it sounds more concise and is definitely stronger. As a final note, you definitely want to look out for when someone's using passive voice to confuse you, like the politicians earlier in the video. You can always just stop someone and say, hello, yes, it's a little murky who the actor is in the story you're telling or the sentence you're using. And then they'll say, wait, shoot, do you know about passive voice? And you'll be like, yes, I do. I watch Comp with Carly. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.